All right, everybody. We are being joined now by Coach Elliott. I'm going to try to get this centered up. You can go mask off, Coach.
All right, cool. All right. I want to make sure but you're still within 6 feet, so we'll be legal until.
All right, everybody. We've got the line open. Hopefully, we've got you guys with us, and we will let y'all take it away with questions unless Coach has an opening statement he'd like to make.
Fire away, boys. That's my opening statement.
Hey, Coach, it's David Hood. What is it like being a coach and an offensive coordinator in, this age of weird where you've got mask on and now you're going to play a game Saturday in front of an empty stadium? What's it kind of been like just from your perspective?
I think I'll be better, prepared to answer that after I've gone through a situation where we've been in an empty stadium. But up to this point, it's just been a little bit different with the protocols that we have in place. But once we hit the practice field, man, it's football as we know it. And Coach has done a great job, as he always does, of insulating us and making sure that we try to create as normal of an environment as possible, understanding that it's not going to be normal, but we're getting used to what our new normal is with all the different protocols. So, when we're not on the field, it's a little bit of an adjustment, just making sure that we're adhering to the procedures in place. But when we get on the field, it's football as we know it.
My guess is that Travis Etienne is the starting running back, but how's it kind of shaken out behind him? Has Lynn J been able to hold on to that second job? And, where do the freshmen kind of fit in there?
It's going back to the previous question. This is a different world. You got to have them all ready to play. So obviously we know Travis and who he is, and he was able to reassert himself as the first one to run out there. And obviously you do have a little bit of a pecking order, but in my mind, every last one of them in that room is a backup just because of the environment that we're in with the testing protocol. You may not know who's available every single week because that's going to be determined as you go throughout the course of the week with the testing protocol. But, Lynn J would be the second guy. But again, I got to have Rencher ready to go. Got to have both those freshmen, and obviously got to have Mikey Dukes as well. And then as soon as Ches is back with us, he'll be ready. So, it's probably as we left it. But truthfully, if you want an honest answer, man, I got to have all those guys ready to be the backup. And they're actually one play away from being the starter, just because of the different environment that we're in.
Tony, this is G. Charleston.
Yes,
I was talking to Travaris Robinson at South Carolina last week. He said that you guys had gotten to know each other pretty well off the field. Do you think he'd make a good coach someday? And what's the one thing that you, Tony Elliott, would like to see to kind of help college football implement better diversity hiring for head coaches?
Yeah, I've had a chance just because of the positions, being in state, different functions that we've been at, and then we got mutual friends. First of all, really, really admire his passion. Just the way that he coaches, just the toughness that his secondaries play with. So definitely know that he has the IQ and the acumen to coach a position. Have had battle with him in recruiting, so I know he can recruit. So definitely think that he would be a no doubt guy that could be, in that pool of guys ready to transition. For me, that's a tough question. I don't know the answer to that question in terms of what the NCAA or anybody else can do other than focusing on the guys that want to be a part of that pool to get opportunities. Because at the end of the day, it's a different transition for anybody. It doesn't matter, what your background is. It's a totally different seat, totally different responsibilities that is difficult to prepare for. So the only other thing I could say that I would personally, speaking on behalf of myself, is just a more clear defined criteria of what necessarily we need to be prepared for. And then also understanding too, that we may not be able to dedicate the time for that preparation, because for me, my approach is to be the best at my job at what I do, and not necessarily looking ahead, but I do understand the reality of the transition. So that's a very, very difficult question. But the first part of that, no doubt, I think T-Rob is one of the guys that needs to be considered and in that pool. And if everything lines up, I think he'll do a good job.
Tony D. Brad Cinco from Clemson SI WCCP here. About a month or so ago, you thought you were playing Georgia Tech, and here you are playing Wake Forest opening the season. How has that changed your game plan and your scouting? And then what do you see in Wake Forest when you did scout them?
Right, I think the difference in scouting is that we didn't have the time over the summer. So we spent a lot of time in the summer showing our guys Georgia Tech, getting ready for their scheme. Camps always starts with focusing on Clemson. So in terms of the in-camp process, it really hasn't changed. And then now the last week and a half, 2 weeks, we flipped over to Wake Forest. So that's really the only change, is that now when we actually are getting into the game planning of a specific opponent, we're able to show the guys. But prior to, when we had a lot of the summer and a lot of the spring when we were at home, we were able to get a good head start on Georgia Tech. But that really hasn't changed now that we know we're playing Wake Forest. And what I see in Wake Forest is what you always see in Wake Forest, man. It's a bunch of guys that play hard. They're very, very well coached. They're very, very disciplined, very sound in what they do. They play all the way to the whistle. They communicate well. In particular, this year's defense, they got 5 seniors on defense. They got 9 returning starters, including number 12 who's coming back from injury. So a ton of experience. The only place where they might not be quite as experienced is at the corners, but even one of the corners at the one that they're going to start at the boundary played a lot last year. So it's a very, very veteran football team that's been playing together for a long time. They know what they're doing. They're aggressive. And then when you get into third down situations, because of their depth, because of their football IQ, they can get very complicated on third down situations by getting into some of their odd packages and then playing a multitude of coverages behind it. So looking forward to the challenge, because and then again, they got one of the best defensive ends in number 9 that we're going to see probably all year. And he's up for a lot of consideration for a lot of different awards. So, he's going to be fired up to play against our guys. So it's a great challenge for us. And then the rest of those guys are going to be fired up as well. And I think it's just going to be a lot of excitement all the way around. From our guys to their guys, it's an opportunity to play. So I anticipate it's going to be a good challenge and a good matchup for us.
Coach, Trevor Gross, Tigers.com here. The tight end really hasn't figured prominently in your passing game since 2016 with Jordan Leggett. How exciting is it for you as a play caller to have guys like Braden Galloway, Davis Allen, Jalen Lay, options like that to throw the ball to?
Definitely fun to have those guys in it. That'll be in a position, be an opportunity to impact the offense. So it's going to be a lot of fun to just see how we can get those guys incorporated. But at the end of the day, they got to make the plays, that are there to bring back that confidence level in the production out of that position. Because as you said, it did transition a little bit more to an emphasis in the run game. So I'm excited. Braden's, done a great job this offseason. Really, really pleased and impressed with what Davis Allen has been able to do. I think his game has really improved all the way around, both in the passing game and the run game. And excited too to see Jalen Lay, kind of get some experience under his belt. I think we all know what he's capable of, the talent level that he has, and now it's just a function of getting him experience. So I'm excited to have those guys, and then also looking forward to the challenge of finding ways to highlight those guys. Amongst all the other guys at the other positions that we have, at our disposal. And that's probably one of the biggest challenges going forward, is to make sure that, because we have now access to that body type and that potential skill set, try not to get too far out of the norm of what we've done, but at the same time, get everybody involved, because definitely there's some playmakers in that group.
Tony, did you update on the wide receivers, especially Ngata and Latson, and they missed a lot of camp, obviously. How have they been the last couple of weeks, and you think they're ready to get things going when you guys play on Saturday?
Right. Credit to both of those guys and what they did prior to the start of fall camp. Unfortunate, the situation with the protocols where they missed some time. But I've been pleased since they've been back. They really have done a good job while they were out, making sure that they were staying abreast of what we're doing. Grish did a good job of keeping those guys engaged, involved in the plan and in the install with the offense. And since they've been back, definitely feel like they're ready to play. Definitely feel like those guys are ready to have a breakout season. It's just a matter of getting them to the game, getting them opportunities, and then them taking advantage of the opportunities. But definitely pleased with where those guys are and how they've come back from the time that they had off and really just kind of jumped right back in and didn't miss a beat.
Hey, Coach, this is Sophia Rainabon with WSPA. The statement that came out last night, college football statement, with the players fighting for social justice and giving practical ways, like the time off to vote, to be able to do that. From a coach's standpoint, what is that like, watching something like that play out in having some of your players being leaders in that change?
Definitely a proud moment because, what we always challenge our guys and encourage our guys is to take advantage of the entire Clemson experience. And that's not just on the field, but off the field, within their spiritual aspect, within Paul journey, just like you said, social justice reform, just having opportunities to use their voice, but seeing them use their voice and their platform in such a positive way, really is just it's kind of like a parent when you see your child kind of finally take that step to like, man, it really sunk in and now they're taking advantage of it and really embracing. What I'm proud of is embracing the totality of it. I think a lot of times in this day and age, it's easy to have a voice, absent of accountability. But I really like the guys taking the opportunity to have a voice, being thoughtful with their voice, but then also following it up with accountability and trying to use their platform to bring about the positive change that they want in college football and also in society.
Thank you.
Hey, Tony, Josh from the Post and Courier. We just saw Chase Bryce was named the starting quarterback at Duke. How happy were you to see that? And
Man, that's awesome. That's awesome. And I actually got a text from him out of the blue, just telling me how much fun he's having up there. Asked about my wife, asked about my kids. I mean, he's just, a solid the earth type of young man. And I think that now they're getting to experience what we know about Chase Bryce, just the quality young man that he is, and then the exceptional football player that he is. So just, man, so happy for him. And hopefully, there'll be an opportunity where we can match up down the road.
Tony, this is Matt with the State. You mentioned that guys, any of those guys could be thrown into a starting role with just the way college football is now. Is that something you guys are having to do as coaches, is make sure more people are ready in case with contact tracing and that kind of stuff? And are there people working maybe in practice than with a scout team than normal?
Right. There's a lot of things in this environment as coaches that we're having to plan for and think ahead that we may not have been forced to in the past, just because of, as you said, the contact tracing. So definitely got to make sure that we understand who's close to being ready, who we need to get ready, who we can count on, and then making sure that we, throughout the course of the week, that we're giving those guys ample opportunity to prepare, because again, you're one snap away from being the guy. And we all know that the expectation is not going to change regardless of the circumstances around the current environment in college football. So we just got to have our guys ready. We got to be planning. We got to be preparing. We got to do a great job in our meetings. We got to do a great job with our game plan. And then also we got to do a great job on the field of putting these young men in a position so that they can gain that experience to be prepared. Should, Kobe Pace, or DeMarcus Bowman ends up being the guy for some unforeseen reasons down the road.
Tony, Lawton Swan with Clemson Sports Talk. Did you get to see Kirk Herbstreit's statement this weekend? And if you did, what would you say to people who are genuinely angry about what he said?
I just saw the highlights. I've really tried to stay off of social media. I've tried to stay off the internet and really just and y'all know how I am. I really don't get caught up in any of that stuff. But in this environment, in this day and age, just for myself, first and foremost, with all the stuff that's going on, how it's changing every single day. There's so many agendas, so many different narratives. I didn't actually get to see the context of his comments. I know that the headline said that he was emotional about something, but I didn't actually get to see what the comments were on that particular subject matter.
Hey, Tony, how are you guys going to handle the backup quarterback job? Did either Tyson or DJ separate themselves, or, do you see this going into the season?
Right, man. First of all, I love all three of those guys. The good thing is we're in a situation I know which one's going to run out there first. But those other two guys have had a good camp, man. They're continuing the battle. I know that Coach Streeter and Coach Sweeney are having some serious conversations about which guy will run out there next. But for me, I love all three of them, and it doesn't matter to me which one runs out there second. But both of those guys would be deserving. But at the end of the day, Coach Streeter is still working through the competition, and I'll know probably when you guys know which one's running out there next.
Hey, Coach.
We talk. Go ahead, Grace.
Trainer with The Athletic. I just wanted to ask you what the most impressive thing you saw Trevor Lawrence do on the field this offseason was.
Man, that's a tough question, because it's always something. It's always something impressive. But I don't know if I have a particular moment, because at the same time, it's all impressive, but you just come to expect it with Trevor. But I think one of the things that I've seen here on tape that really caught my attention recently was And it might have been in preparing for this game, watching him against Wake Forest, man. He hit a whole shot in the cover two to the field for a touchdown. He threw the touchdown. I think it was there versus Wake Forest. He threw it to the field from the far hash to a whole shot, perfectly for I want to say it was for T to go up and grab it. That was something that recently, caught my attention. But with Trevor, every single day, it's become the norm that he does. And the thing about it, I think what's probably most exceptional is just how consistent he is day in and day out, just with the command of what we're doing, the ball placement. And think about his situation too. Potentially, some people consider him, from a player perspective, the face of college football. He's had an opportunity to speak out on a couple of things to try and bring about change. That brings a lot of responsibility and a lot of accountability and a lot of added pressure. But he's actually rose to the occasion under these uncertain times. So if I had to put my finger on it, it's just, it may not seem exceptional to y'all, but for a young person, to be able to manage all that he's been able to manage and not let it impact his performance on the field is pretty exceptional to me.
Thank you.
Hey, Tony. This is Larry Williams at TigerIllustrated.com. Who are your sixth and seventh best offensive linemen right now in terms of just being ready and capable of going in there right now?
Right. I think that's a tough question, and we'll know that as we get closer to the game because we got so many young guys with the game plan paring down as opposed to the entire installation for the most part during camp. But right now, the guys that you feel good about obviously would be, I'd have to say right now you feel good about Walker Parks, being a guy that could go in there and function. You like where Walker Parks is. You like where Hunter Rayburn was progressing to. Trying to think through because again that situation just as any position has kind of been all over the place with the everyday things that you're having to battle through, but definitely feel good about those guys. I like where Mitchell Mays is progressing to. Gives us a lot of depth at tackle. I tell you, Paul Teo, in my opinion, has kind of really done a 180 since early on in camp. I think early on it was really, really fast for him, but you're starting to see him settle in at guard for us a little bit, and trending in the right direction. So those will probably be the guys right there off the top of my head, that I feel good about, and I'm sure Robbie it knows in more detail which guys may be there, but just that's my perspective.
Coach, we talked to Bockhorst last week, and two of the things that he said that stood out to me were that he would characterize this first group on the offensive line as being nasty, which we all know is kind of one of his characteristics, but also that their communication was a real strength. Are those two things that stood out to you, and maybe as much or more so as last year's group?
No doubt, and I think I referenced it in one of my conversations with you guys early on, just about how I felt about this offensive line, the cohesion and the level of communication, and definitely with Bockhorst. But Cade's always been a guy, in our opinion, that had that mean streak to him. Didn't quite play as much as in the past as maybe a Bockhorst, but definitely I think he's got a mean streak. I mean, Jackson is a mauler, and I tell you what, Putnam, we all knew Putnam coming out of high school was kind of that blood to your nose kind of guy, and the guy that probably doesn't get as much I guess credit for being a nasty guy, but McFadden is a guy. He's got a quiet confidence. He doesn't say a whole lot. He's not a rah guy, but I tell you, when it's go time, and he can move them, he can pass set. So definitely think that could be something. Now, again, they got to go out and they got to continue to build upon that every single day in game situations. But I think that's a persona that they're wanting to carry, and I'm seeing it come together. And I think that they got a chance when it's all said and done to really live up to that hype.
Tony, Brad here again. From a play calling standpoint, what is the first game like for you? How much do you feel confident in the game plan, and how much of it's kind of experimental, especially when you've got some new offensive linemen and some new receivers out there?
Right. Try not to have much, much experimenting in the first game, just because there's a lot of unknowns. And the good thing about, playing a Wake Forest team is you can anticipate that they're going to do what they do. They haven't changed much over the years. I'd anticipate that they're going to play to their strengths. So we're anticipating having a good understanding, but at the same time too, it's going to be some reactionary moments where they've had all off season to prepare Not necessarily for us. I know they were getting ready for ODU and some other opponents and then kind of transition to us. But there's some things that they were working on as a defense that they felt like was going to give them the best opportunity long term that they'll be able to bring out of the bag that we got to be prepared for. And the last part of that question, definitely got to be mindful of the young guys. But the good thing about it is the young guys will be with us, all through the preparation process. We're not going to throw too many things, into the equation that we didn't actually rep during fall camp. So be mindful of keeping it simple if we get into a situation where we got young guys in there. But we're going to go on with our game plan, like we always do, but then also have the ability to adjust if we see something different.
And one last thing there too. How much confidence does it give you as a play caller? No, you can just hand the ball off to number 9.
I think that initially on the surface, there's a lot of confidence, but at the same time too, man, you respect every opponent, and you don't, and obviously we know that we have great players here at Clemson, and they're going to be well prepared, but we also respect our opponent too, and we don't take anything for granted. And so we have a plan to be able to go in and run the football. And we have an expectation to run the football, but I'm not going to be, overconfident from the standpoint of just handing the 9 and that's going to solve all of our problems. Everybody else has to do their job collectively so that we all can be successful. But the confidence that I would have is that I know that he's been there. And so regardless of the situations, regardless of the environment, up at Wake Forest, however it turns out, on Saturday night, it won't be something that overwhelms him. So that's probably the confidence level that I have, but would never be overconfident and discredit our opponent thinking that we'll just be able to hand the ball off and that'll solve all our problems. No, we got to go earn it on the field, and they're going to be dead set on trying to stop the run.
Tony,
at what point?
Go ahead.
Oh, sorry, Larry. I was going to say, do you know at what point it'll be like, okay, these are the guys, like after all the testing's done, like, okay, these are the guys for sure that we have for this weekend? Like, is it Friday night, Saturday morning? Do you know when that'll be?
I just know that the ACC has put in the protocols, where we're testing 3 times a week, and the last test is going to be on Friday. That's kind of above my pay grade and out of my control when they'll actually, have the results of that test. So I'm anticipating, having all my guys until they have me different and tell me different. And if they tell me different, then, hey, game day, baby, you got to get ready to go.
Tony, I've already been asked this, but can you maybe update on Lynn J. And sort of his progress? I know he was banged up earlier like last month.
Right, he's been doing a good job of working himself back into the rotation. Still battling this week. This week will be big for him, making sure that he's comfortable on that knee, doing everything that he needs to do. And so we're going to go through the week, anticipating that he's going to be ready to play. But at the same time, too, just want to make sure we want to do what's best for him in this situation.
Coach, going back to Bockhorst, mentioning communication as a strength, have you been told if Wake Forest will be pumping in crowd noise? And if so, what might that, how might that affect your communication as an offense?
The information that I've received is that the ACC has protocols on that, and so each home team is going to be allowed to pump in music. So I don't know the level of that music, but I also know that there are parameters in place that once we get ready to snap the ball, then it has to be brought down to a agreed upon level for both teams. So I'm anticipating that we are going to have some noise. I don't know the level of it, so we're prepared if it's not too loud to be able to use the snap counts that work best in that situation. And then if it's a situation where they are able to crank the music up loud, then we'll have our snap counts available for that situation as well. So we're preparing for both ends. But yes, what the ACC is saying is that the home team can pump music. But there is a protocol that says at a certain time it has to come down to an agreed upon level.
Any other questions for Coach Elliott?
Yeah, Tony Don Munson. Just play calling. The fact that you didn't have a spring game and not have Jeff there in your headset, and I understand there are other voices that are obviously that but just from a play calling standpoint, as you approach this game against Wake, what are you expecting? What are you kind of expecting out of yourself? And is there that big of a difference without a guy like Jeff there, alongside you and in a headset with you?
Right, and I think my approach is going to be the same as it always is. With the expectation that I'm prepared in all situations to make the what I deem is the right call. Jeff's involvement was more in between series with the communication, which I feel confident that Coach Streeter is going to be able to perform that role as well, and give me good information as it relates to the passing game between series. And then, Coach Sweeney's involvement is always going to be the same, regardless of whether it's myself or me and Jeff doing it. So my expectation is to be prepared, as I always had, to be able to call the game in all situations, but at the same time too, be prepared to have Coach Streeter and Coach Sweeney being able to bounce ideas off of in between series.
Hey, Tony, this is David with ESPN. I wanted to kind of follow up on some of the social justice stuff that you were talking about earlier with your players. And I know, I've talked to Dino Babers at Syracuse, for example, and he said he's always been very reluctant to talk too much about race because he wants to be appreciated as a coach, not a black coach. But when stuff like this is going on and you have, players that are obviously very passionate and I'm sure very emotional about a lot of this stuff. How have you viewed your own role in this? Is it as a coach? Is it as a black coach? Is it as a black man who wants to be a mentor for these people? What's been your approach to it?
My approach is how I live my life, and the way I've approached it is I'm a man first, and how I define what being a man is directly related to my faith, and what I believe my faith tells me is my responsibility. As a man, I'm not naive to the environment that I live in. I'm not naive to the color of my skin, but I take responsibility of anything and everything that comes with it. The good and the bad. And I think that's what all men should do is to take full responsibility for all that affects you. And that's been my approach. And at the same time too, I know what demographics of kids I'm dealing with, being able to relate on a lot of different areas. But for me, my approach has always been to be a man first, coach second, and then obviously, being aware of some of the advantages, disadvantages, that come with my skin color, and trying not to use it in a negative way, but to use it in a positive way to encourage those that look like me, but then also to be an inspiration and encouragement to those that don't look like me, because I think that I've been able to do that with my life, to be able to be inspirational to the young person that looks like me, that looks to my situation, but then also those that don't look like me are able to take from my story. And I think that comes from the mindset of being a man first and foremost, before anything, being a coach, and then being cognizant of some of the things some of the challenges I may have to overcome because of my skin color.
Any other questions for